Everyone, and this is Sheila Kamara of Ecstatic Birth. I'm here tonight with Ylia. I'm not even going to try to say her last name because I don't want to mess it up. With a beautiful midwife who I have known for almost 10 years. She's been a part of the ecstatic movement right from the very beginning when I launched my very first program. And she's here tonight to talk about Yoni Mapping. She's a Yoni Mapping practitioner as well as a midwife, and what this conversation is about is really the heart of Ecstasy. So welcome, Ylia. I'm so happy to have you here. And please say your last name.
Ylia Sawitzki.
Okay, there we
go. Hey, I'm so happy to be here with you as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's really a pleasure and an honor. And one thing I didn't mention is that, you know, I'm in New York and you're in New Zealand. How cool is that? It's amazing. Okay, so I think let's just get started right at the very beginning, which was, you know, when I first met you, you had this, passion for this idea that birth could be very pleasurable, and that led you to become a midwife. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. Like, where did that come from? What did that mean to you?
Well, actually, when I first met you, I was in the training to be a midwife in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. But I had already been a midwife for 10 years previously from Germany from a training.
Oh.
I had been out of the profession and I had never heard about ecstatic birthing or orgasmic birthing. That was never part of my radar. And then even I had my own son at that time and I had not heard about it. So it was actually while I was doing my training here that I came across your training on, I don't even know how that happened, through someone else. And that was when all the lights went on, and it was like, holy shamoli, this is it. This is how to do birth. This is just, why would you do it any other way? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, it's such a big vision, right? And it's such a sacred vision to think about, this is how we can bring in the next generation. And I'm curious, as a working midwife, how that translated in the day-to-day, because I think for a lot of people, it's very far from, this vision that we hold is very far from the reality, right?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I wish I could tell you these amazing stories of these women that had these orgasmic births and these babies that were born ecstatically. And I think what's been part of these last 10 years of trying to integrate this into my practice and talking to people and talking to my clients, the realization that kind of hit me is that it is so fundamental, like this shifting from struggle into allowing and into pleasure and into ecstasy is on such a fundamental level that it's a total life changer. Like, I'm basically asking women to completely change their life upside down in the 8 months that I'm providing antenatal care. And in the beginning, I was all like, oh yeah, I can do this and this is what's going to happen. And to be honest, it doesn't work like for me, it hasn't worked like that. Mm-hmm. It's like the bit that I can reach women, the shift that women can make through the journeying with me, I find a lot of it is through my own being. So my way of being around them, my way of talking to them, my way of being at the birth, and having shifted this, into this place where I allow sexual energy, where I acknowledge sexual energy in itself is a huge big part. But how that results in the birth might sometimes be very subtle changes that, like, I can't even tell how it would be different if they hadn't, if that been was another midwife, because I only know this one experience that I shared with them. So I think that's part of why my current work is focusing more on the work directly with women and with men as well, and moving myself a little bit out of the midwifery context, because I simply in New Zealand don't get paid at all for all the time that I would need to put in to give women the education, the listening, the stories, the material, it's such a profound training. If I could charge separately for that and say that's what women choose, then I would have to put a whole nother focus on that. but that's not entirely, like I said to you, I've shifted into offering this work to people who are, whether they're pregnant or not, whether they're female or male. At the bottom, it sort of comes down to the same thing for me.
So when you talk about shifting to this work, you're talking about supporting people, women and men, into opening into more levels of pleasure and ecstasy in their lives, right? Because like you pointed out, that's a way of being. And that's the Yoni mapping work that you're doing now, which I think is very unique. And I actually think that term is not a global term. So for people that don't know what it is, can you talk a little bit about what Yoni mapping is?
Yeah, so Yoni mapping is actually a global term, but Yoni mapping therapy is the term that the woman who trained me coined. So that is her specific offering. And basically, Yoni mapping is a very, I always explain it to people, it's like a rewiring of the neural pathways between the brain and your yoni, your vagina. Mm-hmm. And the kind of, like having gone through a life where we've been shamed for any kind of connection with our sexual being and any arousal or curiosity or, just innocent exploration, has sort of creates these neural pathways to go numb. Like they just don't allow the impulses just don't travel there anymore because they've been like, oh no, can't go there. And so the Yoni mapping is actually, it's a 3-hour session where the first hour is a conversation about the woman's sexual history, her desire, her past experience, and her vision of what she thinks could be possible. And then we talk about her practice with self-pleasure as a core part of really implementing that into her life and taking a practice home that she can keep going with after our session. Mm-hmm. That's the first hour. The second hour is a really beautiful, relaxing whole body massage where it's just about receiving, calming down, coming into her body, and really being present in her body and receptive and relaxed and open. And then the third part is the actual mapping part where I ask for consent, I check in with her if she's ready for that next part because it's very intimate and it could be very vulnerable. And I'm always amazed at that part, that women who beforehand think it might be awkward and it might be weird. And when I actually ask them to take this next, about this next step, they usually go like this in such a zone, a bit like in birthing. They're like in this birthing zone where they're deep in this trance where the mental stories in the prefrontal cortex have kind of ceased happening and it's just all about instincts. And it's usually sure, like a relax, like, yeah, okay. And so what I do at that point, I basically, because the session happens on the massage table, I sit with them on the massage table and I basically have their yoni right in front of me with their legs around my hips. I don't know if you can imagine that. So that's a very intimate position, like their whole body, their trunk is right in front of me and they can see me, I can see them. And yeah, I've got them right in front of me. And so the mapping is it's actually a massage of the outer yoni and the inner yoni. And there's a conversation that happens. I tell them exactly where I am and just gently touching, sometimes gentle massage. And I say, for example, I'm on your right outer labia, just touching gently and massaging. And what do you feel here? And so, and then we take her through the whole anatomical outside and inside. And we've talked about this beforehand, like in that 1 hour talking session. I've taken them through all the steps that are going to happen in the session. So there's no surprise. There's complete consent, and there's the step-by-step checking in. Can we keep, can we go deeper? Are you okay? How are you feeling? And and so the internal yoni gets mapped as well. And the way I do that is it's like a clock that gets placed on, like in her mind, the woman can imagine a clock. And I tell her, I'm at 12 o'clock, I'm at 6 o'clock, I'm at 3 o'clock, what do you feel here? And so that's the mapping.
Thanks for sharing that with us. It feels really edgy, right? It feels really edgy to be talking about this live on Facebook. And I want to highlight why it's so important and why you're doing this and why we're having this conversation in the first place. So first, there's that piece about, we hold so much in our bodies. We hold so much memory in our bodies. We hold trauma in our bodies, right? And so when Ylia was talking earlier about when she's supporting a woman for birth, it's like there's so much training she has to do to get her to that point of allowing ecstasy to flow through her. And, that's one of the things we do in my Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training Program is really, as practitioners, we embody that. We try to embody that ecstasy, because when you embody it, you can bring that into the birthing room and support another woman. In addition to training her for that, you can support another woman. Now, that said, your yoni never really gets massaged in your life unless you're having sex, right? In a way, that's the only time. Yeah. And so I just want to finish this point, and then I really want to hear what you want to say. So there's, any kind of shame, any kind of trauma, any kind of like negative experience, like that's in your tissues, it's in your muscles. And so this is one of the reasons a lot of women that have, have had some kind of abuse or trauma in the past actually have, the statistics show, research shows that they have more trouble delivering vaginally because of all of this. And additionally, studies show that as the baby's head descends down the birth canal, there is a function in the woman's body, in the sacred spot, where the pressure of the head against the sacred spot numbs intense sensations of pain. However, what we're not talking about is that also holds tremendous potential for pleasure. It's two sides of the same coin. So what Ylia is talking about here with the Yoni mapping is releasing anything that might be holding you back from experiencing that pleasure in your body, as well as like building out your pleasure pathways, right? What would you add to that? I feel like you have so much to say on this.
This is beautiful, Sheila. Like you've just hit the nail on the head there. That's totally it. Was the tissues holding the trauma? I suppose they hold both. They hold the trauma, and they also hold any ecstatic memories. Like they would hold anything. And so when I go into the session with a woman, I can never tell what's going to happen, because even, in that conversation before about her history, what unfolds in the session can be entirely different. And sometimes I will, be at a particular point and I'll ask her, what do you feel here? And there'll be a memory triggered, like maybe even a memory that she's completely forgotten. An example just comes to mind, just a sudden sort of welling up of tears, and this memory that, like who knows, 9 years old, she had this friend of her brother come into her bedroom and kind of touching her in ways that she really was confused by, and she didn't know what to do with it, and she couldn't tell her parents. Just a simple thing like that. She hadn't even, it was outside her conscious memory, and then that comes in. And then the way we work in the session was that is to really just like to hold what comes up, to hold the emotion, let her really fully feel it, let her talk what she wants to talk about, what she needs to bring up, and then really bring her back into her body to fully feel it. And in a loving way, through that holding, it's unbelievable, Sheila. Like I've had my finger on a point, and what I've felt is this kind of knotty, tight holding pattern. And she talks about her experience and she fully feels it, and the next moment the whole tissue changes. Like it becomes this soft, pulsing, responsive tissue. It's just like it changes under my hands, under my fingers. I can feel it there and then changing. And that is like, to me that's mind-blowing. That's like absolutely magical.
Right, but it's not that different from like other parts of your body, except that other parts of your body are used to getting massage, right? So like when you talk about putting your finger on the knot and feeling it release, like I feel like I have memories of that when I'm getting a massage, like, okay. And so, exactly. So what is it about, like, into work that feels so edgy. I mean, I think there's a lot of, we massage our entire body. Why does it feel edgy to massage this part of our body?
Yep. Well, I actually did a post on Facebook yesterday about shame. And that's what I feel like. I feel like we're all walking around in these bubbles that are limited by our own shame, that's been implanted there unconsciously while we were so young that we couldn't even perceive what was happening. And so this is our normal bubble that we feel comfortable. And as soon as we come to the edge of that, there is this kind of creeping in discomfort of something's not right, and I better move back from that, back into my safe zone where I won't be disapproved, I won't be shamed. For shaming is such a painful experience. Yeah. And so I feel that, to be honest, I felt that in my training. Like when I went to my training, which involved 3 1-week full live-in retreats over in Australia. So a whole week was 28 women living together, and learning the stuff in an embodied way from morning to evening was on all levels. It wasn't an intellectual training whatsoever. But the idea, because I had never had a session before that, I just followed my gut. I had this whole body yes when the training popped up on my feed, and I went for it without even knowing what I was trusting on a deep level that was a calling. And when we were sort of in the preparation the first few days for exchanging the first sessions with each other, my nervous system was at such high alert. It was like I was freaking out, and I kept saying to myself, like, what is this? Like, I haven't gone through sexual trauma in my life, in this lifetime. I don't even have, I shouldn't even have this memory stored in my tissue from current experiences. This is all tissue memory from past generation. This is the kind of way I've been, it's like, if you think about it, that I've already was an egg. Like, I was an egg in my grandmother's womb. Like, I was already influenced by her thinking and all the messages that she got. And this is what I work with in the sessions a lot of the time, that it's not just the trauma from the current lifetime. There's family trauma, there's lineage trauma that comes up. And there's actually sometimes even the presence of grandmothers, great-grandmothers that actually, I know this might sound weird to someone who, maybe doesn't believe in past lives, but for me, it's a very real experience of a presence of some being. And it's a very benevolent presence that wants to be part of the healing process and offers their support.
Oh my God, I have so much I want to say right now. I can't even, what comes to mind first and foremost is like cultural trauma, religious trauma, right? Like Mary Magdalene syndrome, being shamed for, women being shamed for being sexual beings. We're not supposed to be sexual. We're supposed to be virgin-like. So there's like that on a huge level. And I know we've talked about a lot, this cultural heritage of Adam and Eve, and this legacy of Adam and Eve, and women being punished for their desire, women being punished and told that because you took a bite of that apple, all women will suffer in birth. So there are these mega myths that dominate us on so many different levels. And it's interesting to think that some of these are stored in our tissues. It's not even like it happened to us, but like you're talking about, generation after generation after generation. And when people will say to me, like, how is it even possible for women to enjoy childbirth? How is that even possible when most women experience the opposite? And I think we carry that legacy of pain in our bodies. And I think that work that you're doing is really starting to release that from our tissues, literally release that from our tissues, so we can open to deeper and deeper levels of pleasure.
Yeah, that's my experience too.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say somebody wants to get started in this, or is there a baby step that they can take, or do they need to go straight to a practitioner?
Well, from my own journey, going back, when I started being interested in sexuality, tantric sexuality, conscious sexuality, I put my feeler out into the network, and there was a whole lot of offerings that did not resonate with me at all. Didn't feel clean, didn't feel clear, felt muddy, murky, manipulative. And so it took me really 2 years of I kept basically connecting with myself. That's the key part. This kind of sexual relationship was just in a very gentle, loving way to just start feeling where the edges are, not pushing, not, like I feel so sad when I have clients who've gotten themselves these, they've these crystal wands, and they're like these real kind of big, massive, crystal dildos, and they've kind of hurt themselves because they think that just because it's a crystal, they can explore and it'll be healing experience, and it's not. It's like it's all about my attention and my intention and the way I hold myself. You don't even have to go inside. It's just this creating this gentle, loving relationship with self, and then that can start with sensuous enjoyment, and then it can slowly incorporate more of the sexual side, as women are comfortable. And if this is a big, scary thing, then maybe you start just with sensuousness and stay there until you feel more comfortable to explore more into sexuality.
It's so fun to hear you talk about this. So full disclosure, Ylia has also been a part of my Ecstatic Birth practitioner training. And this is like, she's taken this work to a whole other level. But what she's talking about now, what you're talking about, is really like love and approval, like the healing power of love. And a lot of times we don't really have that love towards ourselves, right? So we might have this like, I want to feel more pleasure. It's like got an intensity to it that is very goal oriented, as opposed to like soft and loving and approving. And I see all the time with the women that I work with, when they have that like hard goal, it's actually a disconnect from the body, right? So I love what you're saying. It's like it could be as simple as like, just like stroke your hand lovingly, connect on that level, stroke your belly lovingly, before you even go anywhere near your yoni, just feel what that's like, receive your own loving touch, right? It really can be that simple, the first step.
Yeah. And, translating that into the sessions, I have had some sessions where women have come for the full Yoni mapping session, and all we have worked with was the heart and the womb. And that's it, because so much stuff came just up in those two areas that going the next step to anywhere near Yoni would have been completely overloading the woman. So it's a very personal thing, and it doesn't actually, like you said before, the yoni is just one part of your body. I had a beautiful session where one woman said, sort of halfway through the session, she said, "Oh my God, my whole body is my yoni." Like, what? It's like there's no difference. The sensuous capacity is everywhere in the body, and we just make this particular area, we charge it with so much expectation and judgment, and it's like
no pressure for yoni.
Yeah, it's just when we can see it more integrated, I suppose, and see it as that, then it just becomes so much easier to feel her as well, to connect with her.
One of the things that I've seen, and I'm wondering if you see this too when you do your sessions, is how like even the idea of having a yoni, or vulva, vagina, whatever word you want to use, even that idea can be like an out of body experience, right? And just realizing, like taking that in and realizing and feeling it as a part of your body. Like there's so much, we talked about the shame, there's also so much disconnect, right, from our sexuality.
Same thing.
In here. And so, I do these body meditations with my clients and my practitioners where we really put attention on all our parts. And a lot of times when we put attention on our feminine center, our womb, our yonis, there are like tears. Wow, I didn't even, realize that I have never put my attention in this way, in this loving, no hands, just simply in meditation, feeling those spaces within ourselves, right? Do you see that as like a lot, that disconnect in the work that you do?
Yeah, I see the disconnect a lot, and I see the compulsive kind of indoctrinated way of trying to push against it. And I see people going to practitioners who work in ways with women that seem to encourage them to push right into the trauma, with strong physical pressure and just go right in there, and it kind of hurts me. It hurts me to even think about it, because I feel like it is such a, again, like what you said about the goal oriented. It's almost go straight for that thing, push really hard, and then see it evaporate. Well, it just doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work that way, because it's about really, it's this loving presence, that the loving presence is everything for the session and for the healing.
So I have to ask, because you are a midwife, have you ever used Yoni mapping on an expectant mom? And is it even advice? Like, how do you?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Very similar to non-expectant, but when I go, like when I do the internal mapping, we spend some time on the cervix. So it's a very gentle connection with the cervix. And for lots of women have never felt their cervix, is like, oh, that's what it feels like. And then I often do, like you talked about meditation. I often do a meditation there, and at that point, connect with the baby and connect with the whole spirit of the baby. And that's such a beautiful, again, such a personal experience, because for different women, completely different things happen there. And even, if she's not pregnant, say, like, even if she's had a hysterectomy, she might have had a hysterectomy, and we do a session with her cervix, and she can still feel into the energy of her womb. It's still there. And the healing that she, like the trauma that she's experienced from that hysterectomy is still healable. We can still heal it just through connecting with the energy and reintegrating that womb, that energetic womb, back into her pelvis.
Yeah.
Like reopening it.
This journey sounds so connected and true, and it will move at its own pace, at the pace that it needs to, that feels right for each woman. And given that we're in a very like go culture, and we don't want to do that pushing thing that you were just talking about, what advice do you have for women who feel like, oh my God, I just want to get there already. I want to release all this stuff. Like, how do they slow down and really get present? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, maybe, maybe the first thing is to kind of ask themselves the questions, has that worked anywhere else in your life? Like that kind of energy approach, has that been successful anywhere else in your life? Like, what kind of experiences have you had with that? And maybe you can expect the same, around your sexuality, which is an even subtler and deeper and more complex area than just about anything else. So I think a lot of the time when women come to the sessions with me, I really need to, like, what I'm telling them is that the session will be like a door. It's like they're opening a door in themselves, and then what lies beyond that door, they don't know, I don't know, and they're going to take it further. It's going to be a whole journey behind that door. So it's not a, fix me kind of thing, I've got this problem, I've got pain when I have sex, now fix me, do one session and turn it off. Well, it doesn't work like that. And in a way it's beautiful, because sexuality is part of our whole life. So the whole life we're going to keep growing with it. There is no such thing as ever arriving at the pinnacle of ecstasy and going like, I'm here now.
And I feel like that's such a great thing to keep in mind, that there really is no pinnacle of ecstasy. And the thing is, like, there's always more, right? So like in a sensual expansion journey, you open to a new level of ecstasy, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is available. And that becomes your new normal. And then you get like, okay, I want more. And then you open again. And there's this wave of like contraction and expansion that you go through. And the cool thing is that there's always like ever deepening levels of pleasure and ecstasy.
It sounds like birth. But like what you're describing is just like the waves of,
well, I think
surges going through.
I do think it's the same. And I think that rhythm of expansion and contraction It's the rhythm of labor. It's the rhythm of life. It's the rhythm of orgasm. I think that it's all the same. And really, we live in this culture that's like, go, 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 go. We want all these expansions and we don't want the contractions. But the truth is the contractions lead to the expansions. It's this wave. And so once you really understand that, then you can just relax when the contraction comes as opposed to resisting it, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Ylia, I could ask you a million more questions. I really can. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel like women that are watching this really need to know, whether they're expectant moms or birth practitioners or just, like every woman? Like, is there anything that you think you want to share that we haven't touched on yet?
I just think that the era we live in is phenomenal. I mean, the opportunities we have now to explore ourselves and to heal all this generational trauma, like for me, that's exciting. It's not a feeling of this big burden that we have to clean up all the shit from our generations before. Like, no, we actually have this gift because every time you integrate a part of that, the ecstasy that comes with that in itself is like the most incredible gift. And we have this, like this community thing that we can connect with over the internet like this. I mean, like, oh my God, that just contributes so much to the collective healing process. And we haven't, I think we haven't even, like there'll be so many more opportunities coming in the next few years, taking this to a whole new level of connection and collective healing that we have no concept of yet.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It's really amazing that you and I could be having this conversation on opposite parts of the planet, literally. And, who knows who's watching from where. And, when I think about also like the practitioners that we've connected with in the training and everyone's all around the world, it's really an exciting time in that way because we can amplify. And I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of negative things about technology and there's a lot of focus on that, but there's so much positive. There's such an amplification of, these really important messages, conversations like this that we're having. It's really exciting. It's really exciting. Okay, so I just want to highlight what you said. And for anyone that wants to take the next step, it's really a matter of like very like gentle, loving approval towards yourself. And you can start with like stroking your hand, right?
Yeah. And also, like just this awareness. I think it's a lot about being present and aware and feeling the moment when you hit that shame barrier, like it's going to feel uncomfortable. Don't expect your self-exploration to be all blissful and lovely, and then you're sort of halfway through and you go like, well, it doesn't feel blissful, it feels a bit shit, feels a bit, it's like, yeah, exactly. Don't push into the shit. Just be gentle and kind. And when you feel that little resistance, like that's how I work with myself. I've been working with myself for the last 10 years that way. It's just like feeling into that resistance and acknowledging it, going like, yeah, right, that's where my growth edge is. Yeah. And that's different for every single woman.
Yeah, that's a really powerful point. It's a really powerful point. And it goes back to that idea of like contraction. And when you're in labor, right, the more you resist that contraction, the more it's going to hurt. And so in this journey, also like just the way you described it, to be able to press into that, be present with it, breathe through it, allow it to work its way with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any way for people that want to connect with you and your work that might not be local to do that?
Everybody is very welcome to connect with me over Facebook. I have got part of the website that Bonnie, who trained us, set up for us. So there's 28 practitioners of us. So if you look at Yoni Mapping Therapy, all one word, there is a link to practitioners. There are a couple of practitioners in the States that might be local to you. And you're very welcome to connect with me through the website as well. And I am doing online coaching, like Skype coaching calls with people as well who want to do a one-on-one.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll put the link to that website there, and you can connect with Ylia in that way. And for anyone that's watching that that is interested in taking this journey for themselves, it also supports expectant moms, I invite you to consider joining my Ecstatic Birth Practitioner Training. This is like a living inquiry that we're always in. How do we embody the ecstasy that we want to bring forth for our clients? Yeah. So I want to thank you, Ylia, so much for being here with me today. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
And me too, Sheila. And I'm kind of going like, why have we waited 10 years for this?
Our timing.
Let's do it again soon.
Let's do it again soon.
Yeah.
Love.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.